if BYU were to run the table and go through the season without a loss, Jake, are they a college football playoff participant?
Yeah, 100%. I don't think there's any way they can't be. I think, with the way they started the season, 3-0 against Pac-12 opponents, and when you consider what they have in front of them, they're going to see SC, they're going to see Baylor, they're going to see some quality opponents through this schedule. And so if they were to go, and run the table, yeah, I just don't think there's any way that they're not in the college football playoff, because I think as an independent, obviously your strength of schedule really matters. And BYU historically has always played really difficult schedules. And if you've been watching this show recently, we've talked a lot about, in regards to like the SC job or any of these available jobs or opportunities in college football, what you've done the last 5 seasons really matters. And I think when it comes to BYU, what everybody can agree on is they're always playing somebody good. They've always got someone in front of them that is a P5 team. And so I think when you start this season 3-0 against, Pac-12 opponents, and let's say that you roll out and run the table, I just don't think there's any way that they can't be in the college football playoff. I mean, what are you going to say? Well, you didn't lose any games, but you're still not in. I mean, is that what we're going to say in a year when Alabama's clearly down, when Clemson is clearly down, when Ohio State is clearly down? Like, you're talking about a team in Ohio State and Clemson who are not perfect anymore, right? Ohio State lost to Oregon at home. Like that, so to me, if it is a requirement that BYU goes undefeated and runs the table, but if they do that, I just don't think there's any way that they're not in the college football playoff. I just can't see a reality where that happens.
Yeah, I think this is obviously a hotly contested discussion, and for a good reason. I mean, BYU over the last several years has played a schedule that a lot of P5 teams would love to have. And I think Tom Homo has done an unbelievable job. You're off to a 3-0 start against 3 Pac-12 teams. You understand why BYU fan feels like they should be in the college football playoff if they were to run the table. And I think what you have ahead of you for the next 2 months is pretty damn impressive if you were to go undefeated. Now, let's get something straight, though. The chances of BYU going undefeated are pretty slim. With this schedule and the attrition that comes when you run into teams like Utah, USC, again, ASU, when you have to play at that level, Peely's out for the year, which is a huge loss for this defense for BYU. I think it is improbable, Jake, at best, that they go undefeated. I think you're just asking an awful lot from any football team.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about that, right? I mean, I think asking a team to run the table, go undefeated, win 11, 12 games in a row, like that's really difficult to do. And I think the word you used, attrition, is the best word to use. I look at, you look at Alabama, and this is one of the reasons that Nick Saban is so special, because Alabama has 3-4 guys at every single position who would be starting on most teams in college football. So with that being said, their attrition is never a problem because they're able to stock that. Now, with BYU, it's obviously a different scenario. So the question's really going to be, okay, how many injuries can you absorb without losing any performance on the field? You look at the Nakua brothers not being able to play for a minute, and then they're able to play in the Holy War and do some things. Like those kind of names. Gunnar Romney, exactly. Those kind of names are the kind of names that are going to make or break your season. Now, you're right. In all reality, this is probably a 2, maybe a 3-loss team if they were to really, not finish the season strong. I think this is a 2-loss team. That's what I think. I think, you get to the end of the year and you're looking at SC to finish the season. That, to me, that's a tough game. Especially if Jaxson Dart's going to continue to do what he's doing. Let's say that he comes into his own, really explodes, takes over the college football scene. That's going to be a tough game for you to win. So I look at that one, I'm like, all right, that's 1 loss right there. The Baylor game, I'm really curious about. What does Baylor bring to the table? How does BYU handle that team? Those are the 2 games where I'm like, yeah, those are 2 potential losses right there. But I think where the rubber really meets the road is, okay, if BYU is a 1-loss team and that loss was your last game of the year to SC, what kind of bowl do you get? Can you get into a New Year's Six bowl, or are you going to play in a different bowl? That's the question.
Well, I think it is a huge question. And I think, honestly, there's a lot, as we've talked about all through like Big 12 expansion and there's a lot to like about being involved with BYU in national TV circumstances. And if you can put BYU on national TV, and when I say that, put them on an ABC, put them on, a CBS, you're going to draw a massive audience. You're getting a million and a half viewers on cable. What happens on over-the-air broadcast TV? It's going to be probably 2 to 3 times that many people watching BYU football because of the accessibility, the platform. I mean, you have to believe that the bosses in college football would love to see BYU in the playoff, but they're going to have to earn that. And again, I think we're in an odd season. You look up and down the rankings of college football. I mean, hell, Alabama's not the same Alabama that everybody kind of assumed that they were. Everybody but Nick Saban assumed that his team was, right? And I think when you look at where Alabama is and when you look at what the rest of college football looks like, it feels like everybody's losing. Look at the attrition in the big, the Pac-12 already. Again, you look at teams like Arizona State, Utah. You have one undefeated team in the Pac-12, and it's Oregon.
Yeah.
Like that seems to be the yearly plight. Now, granted, it's usually not through the first 4 weeks of the season where everybody falls apart, and it's usually in conference play, not at Fresno State. But that's the issue in the Pac-12 is that you overwhelmingly have quality, and it's very difficult to overcome the quality in your own conference, which is why I guess the college football playoff is an exclusive invite. And truth be told, that's probably how it should be.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that's how it should be. But, I think the college football playoff is really hard because when you take a year, so it's really easy in the years where you've got Alabama undefeated, Clemson undefeated, Ohio State undefeated. Cool.
Right.
We got 3 teams. Now it's just a matter of who's going to be that 4th team. But in a year like this year where Alabama did not look good against Florida, we talked all about that yesterday on the show. So you've got Alabama that's a little rocky. They're not the same Alabama as they used to be. You've got Ohio State, which is clearly in a down year. You've got Clemson, which is just straight up, just not the same Clemson team after Trevor left and Etienne left and all those guys left for the NFL. So those are 3 teams right there who have been in the college football playoff basically every single year. So the question really is this year, what is the bar? Is the bar 1 loss?
That's
is the
question.
Bar and then the other thing is the bar is different depending on the conference you play in. For Alabama, the bar is 1 loss. If they're a 1-loss team, they're in the college football playoff, you can book it. Just book it. But I look at Oregon and I say, okay, well, for Oregon to get into the college football playoff, they have to go undefeated or 1 loss is really pushing it. So that's why I say teams like Iowa, Iowa State, like all these lower end teams this particular season have more of an opportunity. And that's why on today's show, we felt like it was so pertinent to ask the question. Well, if those teams have an opportunity, what is BYU's opportunity? Because if you look at their schedule, there's really only, in my opinion, like I said, 2 games left on this schedule that will give them serious trouble, which is Baylor and USC. The rest of the way, those are games this team, assuming they're healthy, should win.
Yeah, and I think if you're a college football playoff team that you absolutely should beat Boise, Utah State. The next 3 weeks are going to be tester games. Obviously with South Florida, Utah State on the road in Logan, then back home for Boise. Boise typically is a rivalry type game. Utah State, obviously, you've had some real tough moments in that matchup over the last decade. Obviously, the Taysom injuries come to mind.
Gnarly.
You've just had some moments against Utah State that have been difficult for you. But if you're a college football playoff worthy team, this schedule is not one that you should fear. And obviously, I'm with you on at Baylor, at Washington State, that vaunted trip to USC to end the season. That's probably going to define your season. Now, my guess is that we're not going to get to the end of the season with a whole bunch of undefeated teams. I just don't see that happening. If you look at where we are in college football already, you have few powerhouse teams left without a loss. Now, Alabama obviously got by Florida just barely over the weekend. But it's hard to see Alabama going undefeated. So, yeah, I think if BYU runs the table, it's going to be awfully difficult to keep them out of the playoff. But the
Yeah.
question is, and the more likely scenario is, if BYU ends up with one loss, and let's say that one loss is to a Baylor, which, my feeling is that's a better loss than losing to USC in any way, shape, or form. Because when you lose on November 27th, it makes it awfully difficult for you to get into the playoff.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on who that loss is to and where that loss is. And I think that will determine the impact that it will have. But I don't think there's any question that if BYU runs the table with this schedule, that they belong in the college football playoff.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I think they are. I think this year in college football is very unique from the standpoint of, again, you have all these teams that are just in weird positions.
Yeah.
You have, again, we're 3 weeks into the season, and you've got multiple college football playoff staples that already have losses. And so that, to me, is the college football gods basically saying, okay, BYU, there's daylight in this door. We've cracked it open a little bit. You got to walk through the door now. And so I completely agree with you. I think the timing of your losses is crucial. I mean, if you were, let's say you were to win out and then you lose in your last game to USC, that obviously is a more impactful loss. That obviously hurts your reputation and your resume more than if you were to lose to Baylor and then rerun the rest of the table, including a win at USC to finish the season. I mean, I completely agree with that. And I think that like let's use the Ohio State loss to Oregon early in the year. Let's say Ohio State runs the table the rest of the way. Anybody going to remember that Oregon loss? Probably not, right? So that's why I say you make a great point. And I think that, it's just really unfortunate that you've got basically the rest of the Pac-12, like UCLA is another team that had a nice setup. After you beat LSU, you were in position. You had the hype. California school, like UCLA, like DTR, everything was awesome. And now you had that loss to Fresno State, and you're like, damn,
Yeah.
So if this was the year, this is the year you got to capitalize.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all of this breaks down. I mean, obviously, looking at the rankings, you feel like, Alabama, Georgia. I don't know. And we're going to get into Pac-12 power rankings here in a minute. But I'm not a huge believer in Oregon. Mario Cristobal teams have never shown the ability to have, staying power, if you will. I mean, Oklahoma appears to be very good. Iowa, Penn State. I don't know. James Franklin has that team playing at a very high level. That's a very good win at home against Auburn. Texas A&M is playing good football. Cincinnati, I don't know. I mean, those are the undefeated teams. And if I look at Clemson, as you stated, not the same football team. Ohio State, that defense does not appear to be, an Ohio State defense that we're used to. So, I guess the answer is I think there are a lot of oddities in college football this year. I'd be shocked if we got to Halloween and had more than 2 or 3 undefeated teams left in all of college football. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, if you just look at Alabama, the Florida game, is that an indicator of who they're going to be? I don't know. I look at Ole Miss coming up. You look at their schedule. Ole Miss on the road at Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Tennessee, home for LSU, New Mexico State, Arkansas, and then at Auburn for the Iron Bowl. That's not a terribly difficult schedule. I mean, it's probably Ole Miss and A&M where those losses would come from. I mean, you're playing Southern Miss now. Granted, they're the Golden Eagles, right? They're the mighty Golden Eagles.
Yeah.
For Alabama. That doesn't scare you. Alabama, if nobody's going to be shocked if we get to December 1st and they're undefeated. Nobody's going to be surprised by that.
But how much would it help? And this is a serious question. I'm not even joking. How much does it help BYU or teams on BYU's level, Cincinnati, any other team you want to compare them to?
Yeah.
How much does it help those teams if Alabama was to lose to Ole Miss or was to lose in the Iron Bowl to Auburn? That one loss, I'm telling you, that one loss for Alabama changes everything. Because now you can say, well, Oregon's got one loss, or USC has one loss, or BYU lost to Baylor in the middle of the year. What makes the difference? Once Alabama loses that ace in the hole, which is, hey, we're undefeated, I'm telling you that opens things up a little bit and gives teams like BYU more of an opportunity.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, obviously, if you're undefeated, you're going to be in a major bowl game.
Yeah.
You're going to be in one of the qualifiers. And I think you look at, the major Cotton Bowl, Fiesta Bowl. You look at the Rose Bowl, which is obviously, the Pac-12. The Sugar Bowl, the Orange Bowl. Like, you've got to get into that conversation. And I think, that's how you get into the college football playoff. And it's simply a matter of, how do you, if you're BYU, if you're any of these teams, how do you backstop and help yourself in any way possible to get into the college football playoff? And again, this is why the Peely injury is such a big deal. I mean, not only is he a captain, he's a hell of a football player.
Yeah.
And it is just really unfortunate that Keenan Peely's out for the year. I mean, I don't know that you replace that guy.
Yeah.
His production, his heart, his effort, the energy that he brings on the field is very difficult to replicate. All right, let's get some of your thoughts in here before we get to the Pac-12 Power Ranking.
Power!
Brylark says, morning, boys. Proyecta Emprender.
I'm sorry, who?
Could you repeat the requisites to participate in the Smoker giveaway?
Yes.
Pretty simple. You have to subscribe to our channel. And once you hit subscribe, you have to take a picture that you're subscribed, post it on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, and you have to tag both Jake and I. Jake is SLC Supercars on all three of those platforms. Or you can if you just Google search douche, it'll take you right to all of his social media. I mean, it won't, but if you want to Google search douche and just do an image search, that's up to you.
I actually think I do come up under douche.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, with that haircut, who wouldn't?
I know.
But the point is,
that guy's definitely a douche.
I mean, the point is, and you have to tag both of us, SLC Supercars. I am the Monty Show, Monty, the Monty Show. Pretty simple. Greg Hawkins, I predict they'll drop at least one out of Virginia, Wazoo, Baylor, and USC. The Virginia game's interesting. It's Broncos return. It's, there's emotion in that.
Typically, you would say there's not much in that, but yes, because it's Bronco, there's a lot there.
Yep. Wazoo, come on. They're not losing to a Nick Rolovich coach team.
See, here's the thing, though. The question with BYU that I think is so fascinating is what performance bar do we hold them to? Like, when you say Wazoo, that is that like, yep, BYU's beating that team?
Yes.
Is it for you? That should be a win.
That should be a double-digit win.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So I agree with you on that. And then when you look at like the Virginia game is going to be tough. I think that for BYU, that's a game that you got to win. It's that simple.
Yeah.
If you want to get to the promised land, you got to win that game.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the Baylor and the USC games are the ones where you're like, phew. I think Kalani Sitake has this team locked right now. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I put too much faith in Kalani. I don't see a situation where BYU is in a place where like, well, oh man, it's just really unfortunate we lost to South Florida, but we started out with 3 Pac-12 teams. That was a letdown. No, I don't see that happening. I don't see the excuses flying a week from now.
Yeah.
I really did. That would be a shocking departure from the norm for Kalani Sitake and company.
Yeah.
So I don't see that happening, but I think you're going to run into two really good teams in Baylor. And I don't know, if Jaxson Dart's the starting quarterback for USC, they're a much more explosive offense.
Yeah.
And that scares you a little bit.
They're a better team.
They are a better team.
Yeah.
But Greg, I'm not, I'm certainly not saying you're wrong. I just don't have a lot of belief in Wazoo. I really don't.
I just think at some point we got to stop treating this BYU team like, oh, it's nice, you won the game, like, cool, but we all know you're going to lose like 4 or 5 at the end of the year. Like, that's not what this team is anymore. They weren't that last year, and they're definitely not that this year. And I look at the schedule and I just say, listen, let's hold this team to a college football playoff level bar, which is, hey, you got to win out. And the only 2 games that you really should be concerned about as a BYU fan are Baylor and SC to end the year. That's it. And anything less than that this year, to me, is a bit of a disappointment. If you lose 3 games this year, that's a bit of a disappointment. If you lose to Baylor and SC, that's going to suck. It is. But I can't honestly say I would be surprised. That's the difference.
I would be surprised.
If you lost both of those.
Yes. I think that you're not getting out-athleted anymore. Everybody, and I think we've seen this, everybody talked about, well, Utah's too physical up front. Well, it turns out they're not. ASU's too fast. Well, it turns out they're not.
ASU fans were relentless with that.
Right, but and ASU is fast. There's no doubt. But they're not too fast for BYU.
Yeah. Because
BYU's level of athleticism is significantly higher.
Yeah.
So you're not getting blown off the field by the talent on the other side.
Yeah.
So you're in every game. You're going to compete in every game. You're not going to have the lead in every game. You're going to have to fight for your life a couple of times a year. That's just the way college football works. But you're not getting out-athleted anymore.
Yeah.
Again, the question will be depth, because fortunately, like a guy like Gunnar Romney, you have 4 other guys that can step in behind him, and now he's playing and he's healthy. And now you have a tight end in Isaac Rex who had a breakout game. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We've got depth. Okay, well, what's your depth on defense where you suffered a lot of losses to graduation?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you had a lot of guys age out of the system. So the question now becomes, who steps in for Peely and where are you? Because production is something we don't talk about on defense. Production is something we talk about on offense. But we need to be talking about production on defense, because it is one of those things that is very difficult to replace when one of your best tacklers, when one of your leaders, when one of the guys who makes sure that everybody's in the right spot on your defense is done for the year. And it's cool he's going to be a leader in practice and on the sideline. But what happens when everybody's got to buckle their own chin strap and it's 3rd and 3 and you need a guy to fill the A gap?
Yeah.
That's the question. So for me, the depth, are you Pac-12 level deep? You're not. We already know that. So when you go to Baylor and you look at the Baylor matchup, well, are you Big 12 level deep? You might be. You might be. I don't know. What I do know is it's not going to be easy. Any way you slice it, it's not going to be easy. And right now, you're the 15th ranked team in the country, and you have expectations for the first time, because I don't think we had expectations last year.
No.
How could you? We had no idea what the season was going to bring last year.
Yeah.
But, on October 16th, when you're in Waco, Texas, taking on Baylor,
Waco,
we're going to find out what kind of depth you have.
Yeah.
Because I think that is the first next big test. Because home games are great, home field advantage, all that good stuff. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, that game in October is a big one. Again, going to Logan to take on Utah State, that's no pleasure cruise. That is not a vacation trip that you're taking up to beautiful scenic, Logan in the Cache Valley. Because trust me, that's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, I mean, this team really hasn't gone on the road yet. If you really think about it, the Vegas game was a home game for BYU. That was well documented. And now you've played, a couple of home games here in Provo, and you won them both, obviously. So, that's a good point. I mean, let's see what they are like in a true road game.
Wait, hang on, though.
Yeah.
Hang on, though.
Right. Uh-huh.
Spencer Morgan has a legitimate, serious question.
Okay.
He says, hey, guys, I saw the thumbnail.
Yeah.
Is the Zuby Slurp Fest over yet, or should I check back later?
Obviously not.
Well, listen. I mean, I've still got a whole glass of, oh, wait, I have a glass that's red. I guess, we just put that aside because Utah sucks. No, I'm kidding. Just being me. He says, and yes, the Pac-12 sucks. David Floyd says, Big 12 with BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston appears on the surface to be a much better compared to the Pac-12 or the ACC. Well, I don't know. Like, how much weight are you putting into the results we're seeing in college football right now? Because I think we're not out of what happened last year. That much to me is very clear. You've lost a year of player development. I think that's what you're seeing. And I think that's why you're seeing the Alabamas and, you're seeing the Clemsons. You're seeing traditional recent powerhouses struggle.
Yeah.
Because you've lost a year of practice time. You've lost a year of development. And I think especially in the Pac-12 where you played 4 games last year, you have no idea what Jaden Daniels is now. Did Jaden Daniels get exposed? I don't know. He could be my starting quarterback. I'd be happy to have him.
Yeah, he was throwing bombs.
Right? I mean, I don't know. I look more at the Pac-12 because they chose not to play a full schedule. Whereas teams like BYU and the SEC chose to play a full schedule. So it'll be interesting. I don't know. I don't think we're out of COVID times in college football.
I don't think we're out of COVID times, period.
Yeah?
Period.
I mean,
it's like
I don't disagree with that. I think the question's going to be, how do you, if you are college football and you're in the NCAA, how do you get past this? Because at some point you've got to be able to leave COVID behind. And anymore, that's becoming a larger and larger challenge in college sports.
Right.
I don't know what you do with COVID because you're not going to shut down the country again. I think we all know that. You're not going to stop professional sports. I think we all know that. Hell, you had the administration, the Biden administration announcing yesterday that international travel is going to be opened again. You're simply going to have proof of vaccination. And that feels like the right thing to do. I don't know. I hear all these stories on Twitter the other day about how there were major COVID issues at the BYU game. That was the same thing that was at Penn State. Penn State has kind of had a small breakout of positivity off of, but when you have 8 million people in the same building on a chilly East Coast night and not many people are wearing masks, I think you're going to have the spread of COVID.
Yeah, well, and I think it's also the vaccination rates too. I mean, the 3 stories we heard out of the BYU game were all people who weren't vaccinated,
were not vaccinated.
And so I think that's the bigger thing.
And one of those, by the way, is a friend of ours.
Yeah, and so I'm not trying to derail the show here and go down the vaccination rabbit hole and all that good stuff. We don't need to do that. But the point just is like, with college football, I wish that there was either a proof of vaccination requirement or a mask mandate. One of those two. For safety purposes.
I think you need to have a vaccination requirement. If it works for the Raiders, it can work for BYU. It can work for college football. I mean, there are many places now, many venues for sports across this country that require a proof of vaccination to get in. And I think it's the only way to go about it. And you're always going to have people that are going to have fake, vaccination cards, whatever it might be. I get it. My point is, I think you have to do something to protect the game, to protect the revenue that comes from the game.
Yeah.
Baseball, basketball, football, college sports, I think you have to do it.
Yeah.
What do you got? Whoa, comment dump. Let's see. What do you guys think about adding Gonzaga as a basketball-only member to the Big 12? David Floyd says. I think it's a non-starter. I think if you are Gonzaga, the Big 12 doesn't make a lot of sense. I just think geographically where you're located, you're on the West Coast. I think if you were going to do that, and I think, frankly, the Pac-12 would be really smart to add Gonzaga as a basketball-only member. But the WCC is a pretty good conference. And by the way, why would Gonzaga leave the WCC when, you're in,
auto bid.
Yeah, I just don't think I don't think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I really don't. With all due respect to everybody else in that league, San Diego, San Francisco, BYU currently for basketball, but you look at the Christian-based schools, like there's no reason for Gonzaga to leave that conference, at least not now. They're making a ton of money already being an elite basketball program. You're playing for national championships. Your coach is an alcoholic, apparently, who gets DUIs. I don't know why you would leave. Did you not hear that? Mark Few, the head coach at Gonzaga, got a DUI last week.
That's cute. I remember when I had my first beer.
And it's amazing to me. Yeah, no, don't get me started.
Him and Steve Keim are probably hanging out.
And Tony La Russa, too.
Yeah.
Prick. Anyway, sorry. Brylark says BYU will have to run the table comfortably to get to the – well, I don't think comfortably matters. If you get to December 1st and you're undefeated, you're going to a New Year's Six Bowl.
Yep.
You're in the process. I think it's very difficult. It would be almost impossible to keep BYU out at that point. I don't even know what justification you could possibly have
Because think of the hype.
to keep BYU out at that point.
Think of the hype, right? Oh my God! Look, think about what ESPN does with Aaron Rodgers every day. That's a negative-ass story. Aaron Rodgers is doing this and doing that. Imagine what would happen if BYU was 12-0, dude. You tell me that the hype machine around BYU wouldn't be like in full send to the moon mode?
Come on,
bro.
Come on. At what point do you guys stop kissing BYU's ass? Ace would like to know.
What do you want us to say about Utah, bro? What do you want us to say?
Yeah, I don't know.
Should we say that? Should we say that we're really looking forward to seeing Cam Rising, get the nod this week, because that's what's going to happen whether Whittingham wants to acknowledge it or not, right? Like, do you want us to talk about the fact that the program lacks a lot of spirit and intensity and willingness to do what it takes to win a football game right now? Do you want us to talk about the fact that Kyle Whittingham is allegedly on the way out in terms of going into retirement?
Well, listen, Ace, and Ace is a diehard Ute fan. Listen, I think that, and we can get into the Pac-12. I'm happy to do it. I think when we look at power rankings, it's no longer acceptable just to say power rankings.
This is the power rankings on the Monty Show.
Power rankings in that ass. I don't know. It just is.
Can you work in Nick Chubb into the power rankings?
Let's talk Nick Chubb. It's Chubb. I'm a child. Okay. Pac-12 power rankings. I think the top 5, I think, is pretty straightforward. I mean, I don't think there's any question Oregon's number 1. Until the Cristobal's come back to earth, I think they're number 1. I mean, the win in Columbus is the ultimate hammer at this point, and I think they're probably overrated by a touch because they went to Columbus and beat Ohio State. They looked really good against Fresno State. I mean, and you look at UCLA losing to Fresno State.
Yeah,
that does not help UCLA's plight for legitimacy, if you will. So I look at what you have in Eugene, and I think you have something rolling now. And so I think by far, without a question, Oregon's number 1. Now I put USC number 2.
Yeah.
I think USC, and I don't mean to gush over or find myself attracted to Jaxson Dart.
Oh my God!
Oh, he's so
Jaxson
sexy.
Dart!
That hair.
Well said.
Yeah, I'm not worried about his hair. I'm worried about his knee, because if Jaxson Dart's healthy, he is by far the starting quarterback and the best quarterback at USC. My prognostications and awesomeness of brilliance will tell you that Keaton Slovis has been overrated. He's nothing more than Matt Barkley wearing a costume. And my point is, I think Jaxson Dart has a chance to be that breakout superstar that the Pac-12 needs. And I think when you look at SC, obviously the way they played, at Washington State against the we don't get vaccinated Roloviches, idiot, in the second half was not a fluke. I mean, that was 100% Jaxson Dart. And I just think that when you come out and you throw 4 touchdowns and 391 yards, Wazoo died a quicker death than this fly's about to die.
It's unbelievable.
I
don't know how it's possible.
Once a week, we have a fly that's just chilling in the cut. Now, Phil Steele, you guys were about to get fined. We're going to take the Phil Steele magazine.
Okay, here we go. We're ready.
And we are going to attempt to commit fly-a-side.
Can people see? Is the camera correct?
I don't know. I hope so.
Damn it.
Did I get him?
No.
I think I did.
No, you didn't. He's still flying around right here. Where is he now? Here he is.
Bastard.
Here he is.
Whatever.
Douche.
Anyway, we haven't. He's in your hair now. Good. Look, Mike Pence, take it easy. Anyway, the point is, you look at what Jaxson Dart was able to do. I think it's really good. Now, by the way, you're playing Saturday night against Oregon State on Fox Sports 1. That's a must win. There is no more room for error at USC. And by the way, while we're on the topic, Dante Williams is a nice little story, but he's not the long-term head coach at USC.
Yeah.
Stop. Just knock that off. Because, and again, I will just tell you that I think USC needs a guy who can come in there and be a magnetic personality. And with all due respect to Dante Williams, I just don't think he's that guy.
Yeah.
I really
agree.
don't.
100%.
Who do you have number 3 in the conference? Because I think there's only 2 choices, UCLA or ASU, and neither one's a good choice.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I think the biggest thing that I look at between these two teams is the fact that they don't really have the signature win yet. And you're going to go right to, well, UCLA beat LSU. And the problem with that right now is that it doesn't look like a signature win now because you went ahead and you lost again. And instead of, hey, we beat LSU, then we went ahead and beat Fresno State, and then, so it's like this whole situation where, the LSU win should have been like, bam, we're here. I'm
Yes.
Chip Kelly. I'm DTR. Like, we're UCLA. And now it turns out that it's, I'm Chip Kelly, and we're UCLA, and we have DTR, and it's kind of nice. And so to me, I think you have to put ASU one rung ahead. I think you do. The problem with that is that in Provo this past weekend, as we're all well aware, ASU fell apart. I mean, I'm talking about letting the crowd get to you. I'm talking about, just getting put away in that game. And so when you ask me, well, who's the better team? I don't think one way or the other you can say one is actually better than the other. I wish I could say, hey, they're tied. They're even. Put them up against each other and see who comes out the other side. That's where I think we are with these two teams. But, if you really nail me down on it, I probably would take ASU right now over UCLA. I like what I saw in the deep game, or in the deep throw game. I like the fact that they have a lot of threats down the field, and I think against most teams, they're going to be able to rack it up. They're going to be able to be a 30 point a night team. That's what I think they are against most teams.
Yeah, and I think I would go UCLA because of DTR. I think he's a better quarterback than Jaden Daniels is. Jaden needs to eat some fettuccine with extra sauce. I mean, the guy just has to gain weight. He does throw a nice deep ball, but you are terrified every time that guy takes off and runs out of the pocket because of his slight frame. Now, the other thing that is pretty obvious is that I think the 4 turnovers for Arizona State were shocking. Yeah. The lack of composure was shocking out of a Herm Edwards coach team. That's why I'm going UCLA 3, ASU 4. Yeah. And then, by the way, I think, both of these clubs, UCLA has to come out and stomp Stanford on the farm.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to come out and just kick the crap out of Stanford and make it pretty clear that Fresno State was a blip on the radar, a letdown game, and you are here for that. You are here for that David Shaw ass.
But
that's it.
You see what's happening in college football with a lot of these teams. Like, I just want you guys to notice this as the season kind of wears on. A lot of these teams are dealing with, like, yes, we have this great win, but then we lost to this crappy ass team. So now we don't know who you are. And I agree with you. I agree. DTR is better than Jaden. There's no doubt about that. I completely agree. But again, I just maintain, whether we're looking at ASU and UCLA or whether we're looking at Ohio State or any of these teams, just keep in mind from the 50,000-foot view, these losses to bad teams are really shaking the confidence in these programs. I agree completely that UCLA's got to come out and just annihilate Stanford. Like, that needs to happen.
Yeah, and I think as you try to build better in the Pac-12, that you've got to avoid these losses early. And it's why, playing Southern Mississippi for Alabama is a smart move.
Yeah.
It's why Utah playing Weber every year is a smart move, because I'm a big believer that you should play every team you play should be a P5 team. I'm a big believer in that. But right now it's not. So why would you? Why would you do that? I think that's a critical one. And then of course you have to ask the question, well, where does Utah slot in? Well, here's my question. Is Utah better than Stanford? Well, the problem is it doesn't appear to be that way. I mean, when you go to LA and you beat USC, now it is what it is, but Utah doesn't have that win. Utah's win is against Weber. So I think you have to put Stanford, I think you got to put him 5th. I think Utah is 6th behind Stanford. And then I think, you're probably Oregon State, Colorado. I think Washington's dog shit. I really do. I mean, I am so disappointed in Jimmy Lake and the status and the current state of the Washington Husky football program is embarrassing.
Yeah, dude.
To have long stretches where you play this poorly is shocking. I mean, when you lost to Montana,
Montana, bro.
You went to Michigan to die,
dude.
0-2, and then you're hanging your hat on a 52-3 win over Arkansas State. I'm shocked at the depth that this Washington program has fallen to, and so quickly. You have a Cal team in Seattle this weekend. Now, nobody's going to see it because it's on Pac-12 Network, as is, by the way, the Utah game.
Yeah.
But I'm shocked. I'm really shocked. And everybody that was tweeting last week that Chris Peterson needs to come back, I wouldn't hold your breath on that. I just would. I mean,
Is Washington a good job?
I don't know anymore. I don't know. I think, here's the question. Was Jimmy Lake a good hire?
Wow.
I mean, I still go back to, you had an elite defensive coordinator in Pete Kwiatkowski that you essentially demoted so that Jimmy Lake could be the D coordinator, that he could be the coach in waiting. You cleared the decks for this guy, and he has not been good.
For what, dude?
And my point is, they haven't recruited. They're not executing on the field. And I look at the worst teams in the league. I think Washington State is easily the worst team in the Pac-12. I think Arizona, Fish has done a nice job, I think. Now, granted, they're 0-3.
Yeah, but they're better.
They're better than they were. I think Nick Rolovich is a joke. I really do. He's an embarrassment. I still don't understand. If you don't know the Rolovich story, not only does his team suck, but he's refusing to get vaccinated, even though in the state of Washington, and whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't matter. In the state of Washington, if you are a state of Washington employee, and he is Rolovich, the head coach at Washington State, and he happens to be the highest paid MFN employee in the state at $3.2 million, he's refusing to get vaccinated. He's refusing to talk about his vaccination status or what he is doing to comply with an order that's going to require him to get vaccinated by the end of this week, or he's not going to have time to beat the deadline on October 16th.
I think that's HIPAA.
And I just don't know what you do with Nick Rolovich at that point. He's applied for an exemption, which is not likely to be given. By the way, his offensive coordinator's brother just resigned a position because he refused to get vaccinated. I don't remember what school that was, but he resigned his position as a coach at the Naval Academy. Because he's a federal employee at the Naval Academy, and all federal employees have to be vaccinated. He refused to get vaccinated, so he had to quit his job. I don't see any way out of this Rolovich situation. Oh, by the way, Washington State football's major sponsorship is with a local hospital system that's overrun with COVID patients right now. And he won't get vaccinated. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Those are your Pac-12 power rankings, brought to you by nobody and your mom. Horatio Hornblower, speaking of your mom.
I love this dude's name, Hornblower.
Undefeated BYU in a New Year's Eve 6 game. New Year's 6. Hello, can I read?
Hello.
Undefeated BYU in an NY6 game. Undefeated BYU in playoff with lots of help. Only 2 one-loss teams or less. You need, if you're BYU, you're hoping that there are no undefeated teams.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna I mean, it's inevitable. If you're a betting man, why would you bet on BYU being undefeated?
Yeah, they're going to lose a game.
I mean, the
There's no
return's
doubt.
great, but the chances are slim.
Yeah.
Coach Lovren says Bama would need 2 losses to lose out on the college football playoff, I'd assume. If BYU takes 1 loss on the year, does Fresno jump them for an NY6 game? No, because I don't think Fresno has the quality of schedule that BYU has.
And Fresno, that whole program, it doesn't have the brand power, because think about it. In college football playoff, and this never gets talked about, but I absolutely believe it's a thing. The college football playoff is very different than the March Madness bracketology lifestyle, right? In March Madness,
Very different.
On the basketball side, you want Waxahachie, Nowhereville State on the bracket. You want that Cinderella story. You want Stony Brook on the bracket. You want them making the round of, the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. But in college football, we don't want that. Nobody wants that. We want Bama, Clemson, and Jarrah World for the national championship. That's what we want. And that's what we've been getting. And now we're not going to get that this year. We're not getting Bama, Clemson in the championship game. We're not getting freaking Bama, Ohio State in the championship game. We're getting Bama. 100% we're getting Bama. I have no doubt about that. The question is going to be who's going to be the opponent. Because think about it. If it's Bama, BYU, there will be people who watch that game, but that's basically no contest. Bama's going to roll BYU.
Yeah,
so,
I would agree with that.
It just depends. It's hard in these years when you've got a bunch of 1- and 2-loss teams to kind of create a great matchup.